To understand and comprehend the teachings of the Book of Mormon, one must understand and know the geography of the Book of Mormon. In order to know the geography of the Book of Mormon, one has to understand that it is Moroni at the end of the Book of Mormon who has provided this holy word of God, which is called the Book of Mormon, that sees our day having been shown by Jesus, that in our day, those that have been trusted with the holy word of God also transfigure the holy word of God. So you must take all those things in consideration in attempting to gain the truth that's offered in the Book of Mormon. One also needs to take in consideration that the world considers a book that cannot be tied to geography or to the land has to be a fairy tale or a book of fiction. So it's very important that those using the Book of Mormon know and understand where the Book of Mormon people actually lived their lives. We also need to understand that those who recorded their histories in the Book of Mormon know that they were guided by God to the promised land and that they were living on the promised land, which in turn becomes the land of liberty unto the Gentiles in our days. So all of the things have to fit in a land of liberty. There must be evidence on this promised land that identifies the massive event that took place at the crucifixion, wherein the earth was totally changed. A period of time when the majority of the entire population was destroyed down to, it appears to be, only around 2,500 souls. So this has to be identified as happening on this promised land. In this geography theory, the maps indicate the various moves that take place within the Book of Mormon as they move from the lands of Nephi into a land that is referred to the land of Zarahemla. In the land of Nephi, there's never a mention of a major river in the land by the name of Sidon, and there's never a mention of the four seas and the narrow necks and passes. In these maps, it lists the various movements of the people on the land with all the scriptural information, so you can tie it right to your own personal research, even by page number, and all of the characters that happen to be in that part of the history at that time. Now, as we're looking at the map here of the United States, we have to remember that the activities during the crucifixion as the land was changed took place at 34 AD, and we're looking at the United States as it looks today. So when the people were migrating on this land and living in this land, the activities prior to 34 AD had not taken place. The first time the name Promised Land is mentioned in the Book of Mormon is during the Jaredite period, and it's when the Jaredite people are guided by God to return back to the land where their ancestors had come from. That is Noah when he left the land of Eden. And that is the real Holy Land, which is the Promised Land, where everything then will come to an end. In order for a real geography theory to work, all of these things have to be addressed. And so as you peruse these pictures in the background, you'll see that everything seems to be addressed that can be found in the Book of Mormon. Every item that seems to add anything to the identification of the geography of the lands in which these people lived. This is a very interesting map. We got it from the internet. Notice that all the volcanic activity in North America comes from the western part of the United States, and that the winds carry that eastward across the United States. Also notice on the right side of the page that they're talking about the volcanic activity and that it took place about 2,000 years ago. Christ was crucified about 2,000 years ago. Fits very nicely with the Book of Mormon history. With the massive land changes that took place at the crucifixion, all the waterways were changed and very possibly could have created the basin for Lake Bonneville. Lake Bonneville was short-lived and broke and flowed to the west and then finally ended up going to the south, creating the Sea of Cortez. It even ran across Mexico into the Gulf of Mexico. This is an interesting satellite picture that shows a range of younger mountains that were created by the breaking up of the original rock layers of the earth to form valleys and mountains of great height, and it cuts through a more ancient set of mountains that were already there called the Uinta Mountains. But it's very easy to follow the younger set of mountains as they cut through the west edge of the Uinta Mountains. Interesting, in the Encyclopedia Britannica, there is only one place on the earth that experiences whirlwinds that are devastating as they are in the United States. Seems like the whirlwinds are created as a result of the Gulf of Mexico, and they go right up the Mississippi Valley. In the Book of Mormon, people were carried away and they didn't know where they had been carried away to. In this research, Michigan is used as the land bountiful. This is an interesting comparison between the number of burial mounds that had been found in the state of Michigan, and we used those just as the larger the number of mounds, thinking that they might have been the larger cities, and compared them with Book of Mormon history and the names of those cities at that time. Mormon had his battles, we believe, primarily in the northeastern part of the United States. Mormon and Moroni's history is recorded on top of the previous people who lived there, which was the Jaredites. Moroni tells us that in his history and describes where those cities were in relation to the area that he was raised on. This is the coincidence map, and there's lots of interesting things there, lots of cities that are still in use today, lots of lakes and things that are still in use today, even the Ten Commandment stone in New Mexico, trees of life and things like this that also pertain to Book of Mormon history. If you'd like to receive a copy of these maps to be used in your own personal research to see how well it might fit with your research, please contact the BMS Foundation, P.O. Box 2345, Evanston, Wyoming. The set of maps on a CD is only $10 and $5 shipping and handling. We thank you.